Welcome to the Heart Rate Variability Podcast. Each week we talk about heart rate variability and how it can be used to improve your overall health and wellness. Please consider the information in this podcast for your informational use and not medical advice. Please see your medical provider to apply any of the strategies outlined in this episode. Heart Rate Variability Podcast is a production of Optimal LLC and Optimal HRV. Check us out at optimalhrv.com. Please enjoy the show. Welcome, friends, to the Heart Rate Variability Podcast. I'm Matt Bennett. I'm here with a guest that I've been trying to get on the show for a while now. He's one of those people that I have met along my heart rate variability journey that, I've been just so impressed with both how he thinks about stuff, and he's just one of those people that I think you'll get this from the podcast. You meet him and you want him to be your friend. So Jarhed Peña, welcome to the podcast. I'm so glad to have you. It's great to get to know your work through the couple of years we've been conversating through AAPB and other things as well. So I'm excited to have you on the show. And just to get us started, just a quick introduction of yourself for our listeners.
Absolutely. Thanks, Matt. I'm so glad to be here as well. So my name is Jarhed Peña, and this is kind of interesting because my background academically, professionally, you would not think that I got here because, compared to other people who have, managed to find heart rate variability and use them in their practice. So essentially, for me, I started with professionally in disability settings.
Yeah.
And I progressed, got my master's, got my PhD, and so forth. And right now, I work with people with chronic pain and functional neurological disorders. Those are the two main disorders and conditions that I treat. And I've worked with other mental health conditions as well in the past, but just lately, and how I managed this, when I was in finishing my doctoral studies, it was on stress experiences of autistic college students. And that dissertation really was what introduced me to heart rate variability, because I had to use heart rate variability there in my studies, and going through the literature, the background of it, and the science behind it, and I thought, this is golden because it quantified and objectified adaptation for me.
Yeah.
What it meant to persevere, to be resilient, to keep going. When I heard the word resilience before, I've always equated it with psychological methods and means, and now we use resilience physiologically or psychophysiologically. So I thought that was really fascinating. But yeah, anyway, all these just kind of happened just over the past few years, even for me, just in terms of the population that I serve.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as heart rate variability, I guess it's one of those things that I have fallen in love with. And if you have fallen in love with something, you tend to think about that from the moment you wake up until right before you go to bed. And you get to play with it, and that's what I like about it. I'm playing with I call them my patients or my clients. I'm playing with my patients and how they feel their body, and in doing so, they get better.
I love
But yeah,
that.
I guess that's a brief snapshot here from disability to now working with patients with these specific conditions.
I would love to ask just a little bit about your work in autism, because I really, in my experience of running a special education school earlier in my career for, autism, a lot of times nonverbal or limited,
Right.
obviously not individuals who, for the most part, were going to college. Yet they were like my greatest teacher. And after getting a master's degree in psychology, really, it was a crash course in nervous system regulation, that I never got in, 3 years of graduate school to call myself a therapist. I don't think we ever talked about nervous. We weren't talking a whole lot about the brain back in the 90s either. And, just seeing and working, especially with occupational therapists, defined what helped them to regulate their nervous system. I saw that direct correlation between a regulated nervous system and the disruptive behaviors, which often was the reason they were in our school. They were a lot of times too violent for the public school system. So I just, out of my personal interest, like working with, individuals who autistic, but also, academically in college, I just loved what lessons did you take away from your work with that population?
Right. I would say that they also get stressed.
Yeah.
Just like everybody else. I think that's one of the questions to try to answer. How was their experience? But they also get stressed. But their feeling of stress, I guess, subjectively, of course, differs because these are what we call, I'm going to air quote this, because the term, I understand the term can sometimes be derogatory,
Yeah.
even though some people might mean well, right? The high functioning
Yeah.
autism, because they're in college, they're high functioning,
Right.
they can function better in society. I don't, that's not my view.
Yeah.
But I understand rehab and disability and how they play around people's experience. So now going back here, this is also very interesting because I thought, well, of course, duh, Jared, I should have known this. But it's one of those findings that made me realize that, well, at least now it's in the forefront of my mind when I
Hmm.
think about people who experience the world in such a way because of uh, having autism. So they their developmental growth, of course, obviously, like I said, obviously is different.
Yeah.
Like for example, we're talking about people who later had to learn how emotions play a role in how people converse
Hmm.
and how emotions can be displayed or mentioned without being explicitly mentioned. How tone of voice, for example, and nonverbal cues or nonverbal way of speaking can play a role or have these behaviors have an impact on what the other person's saying, what they actually mean, right? They did not have to be attentive to that before, but now they will have to.
Hmm.
And a good chunk of the people that I have interviewed in this, because what I did was I quantified the stress and gathered some interview questions as well. So I had objective and subjective measures. I from the people that I interviewed, I learned that they were like computers
Hmm.
in understanding human behavior.
Hmm.
And this one person in particular, he determined how many blinks he needed to kind
Wow.
of ground himself to think about what he is saying in relation to what the other person is saying
That's
so that he can
incredible.
blink similarly and so that he could also um, understand tone of voice and nonverbal cues. And his brain is processing all that information. And I told him explicitly, I said, wow, this is very fascinating. I'm paraphrasing here, but this is fascinating experience because you're looking at a person who takes all of this information into account as he
Hmm.
spoke to other people. And I said, if I had not been around the autistic population multiple times for years, I would never have guessed
Yeah.
that you were diagnosed with autism. Now,
Yeah.
people are going to ask, well, how do you know they were diagnosed with autism, et cetera, et cetera? Um, I didn't go into his medical records, of course. That's
Hmm.
beyond what I needed to do for this study. But this person was receiving assistance from the school. There was not this person was on an IEP, so
Hmm.
individual education plan. So we have a documented disability history for since he was in middle school. And so, and he said he went through like 12 years or something, 10 years intensive treatment over at, I can't remember, either University of Michigan or somewhere around there in Ann Arbor, um, on how to talk to people.
Yeah.
And for me, I thought if we can understand human behavior like that, and this is very much like a computer, and I thought
Hmm.
my mind went into like robots, and I thought,
Yeah.
well, in a way, everything that the brain receives, right, it's all input. We're making sense of it. We're prioritizing it. The brain is prioritizing it. I mean, not it's we're not doing it consciously, but the brain is doing it subconsciously. And I thought, oh, this is this is very cool information. But that's their lived experience, right? Generally, for that population, that's what I learned. It's they're learning all these skills later in life.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and as opposed to other people who don't have autism or neurotypicals, it's um it's a learned behavior as you just grow up. It's like a
Yeah.
privilege, like you just happen to have it just because you don't have it, or you
Yeah.
happen to have the skill just because you're not autistic, just being
Yeah.
in this population.
And I'm curious because this is a topic that has, I've talked to a few researchers about on the podcast about just kind of looking back at that experience because I know, your patient population or your client population has changed over time. That there seems to be, a growing understanding that heart rate variability kind of being a very quantifiable number, a very concrete number. Whereas you talk to some neurotypical person about, what's your feeling of sadness? They'll kind of look at you like, what are you talking about? Like, but if you talk about like, what's your RMSSD score, there might be for some people a really nice insight gained by that really concrete. So I wonder if you walked away from your research, thinking about, HRV and how it might be a practical clinical tool for, and I know your experience with biofeedback as well. Just kind of your thoughts about how it might could help benefit that population.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was for, at least for my research, it was beyond the scope to look into answering that question. But definitely that was something I had in mind because one of the issues I had as a therapist, as a counselor, and truthfully, I'm going to derail here a little bit. This was my issue as well, having English as a second language.
Hmm.
I thought that psychologically, I needed something that's more objective, something to really compare emotions, and have a greater sense of what they are. And wherever you go in the world, one plus one is always two.
Hmm.
And so the heart rate variability created that for me, that no matter which body I'm talking about, I mean, I'm not comparing one person's body to another person's body. I'm comparing their body to their body,
Right.
okay, with heart rate variability. And so, but still, it's objective to the point that we know that, or they get to understand a bit more what is going on in their body,
Yeah.
how the nerves are firing, how they're working in as an orchestra together to give them the psychological experience, the perception of their world around them,
Hmm.
whether they are consciously aware of that or not, whether they know how to provide put in the words or not. But really, that was my main takeaway that I like about it a lot. Um, the ability to just know your body just a little bit more
Yeah.
gives you insight for self-regulation, emotion regulation. You know when you can push yourself further. And I've been using this a lot as well,
Yeah.
being an entrepreneur, because I know when I've had the history that I figured, no, if I just work hard, I'm gonna be okay.
Right.
You just put in the time, you just work hard. I can work hard. Working smart is more challenging.
Yeah.
But if I can work hard, then I can focus more on working smart. But then over time, as I got older, my there was a change in my body that I realized that I'm not as sharp. I am when I am feeling a certain way,
Hmm.
but I could not really just push my body through
Yeah.
um as much now. And so and I realized, well, there's something wrong with me. And then I read some, just some documents, some social media and all that, other people's experiences. And the way they're operating was you just gotta know your body enough to know when you can keep going, to just so that you know you can stay, or you know that you're in your A game. And then when you're in your A game, you gotta maintain that. Heart
Hmm.
rate variability, I think, creates that pathway because you understand yourself a bit more. It's not just You're not just trying to see if you can stay up for um uh have an overnighter tonight. You
Right.
kind of know that. Plus, you have a value. You
Hmm.
have a number that you have been now testing to see how you feel about it for a long, long time. So you're not just going out of your own whim, the way, if you can say that.
Yeah.
So that's what I like about it.
I love it. So let's keep with your career trajectory. So you got introduced, kind of like me. I kind of stumbled. Yours may have been a little bit more strategic, but kind of stumbled upon HRV, looking for a metric to help measure mental health. But kind of finding that, falling in love with this thing that's out there. And I think when I found it 7 or 8 years ago, it was I just thank all the researchers that have been doing work since the 60s to show, yeah, this wasn't something that I needed to validate for myself because this was already well studied. How do you take that sort of emerging, knowledge and interest, as your career progressed?
Um, I Things were just given to me. They just landed on my lap in a
Yeah.
way. I mean, not so much given. When I say things here, what I'm talking about are just specific people that needed help.
Hmm.
And for example, I had a patient some time ago, and the providers that this person was working with did not know where else to send her. They don't know how
Hmm.
else to treat the condition. This is, functional neurological disorder.
Yeah.
And, for me, I would hate to hear from my provider to tell me, I don't know what to do with you.
Right.
I'd rather hear something along the lines of, I don't know where we're going because this is new for me, but can we try this?
Hmm.
And I think this is why it might work. But do you think we can try it? I think that's welcoming, right? There's a little bit of hope there. But the way it was packaged for this person was, we don't know we don't know how to help this person. Do you think you can help?
Yeah.
And so I said, um, I don't know as well, but I will do my best.
Yeah.
And from that point on, uh, using heart rate variability here was not conducive.
Hmm.
We had to do baby steps.
Yeah.
And this is what I learned about heart rate variability from as I incorporated it in my practice. Some people are not ready for that level of treatment or that level of information. Not so
Hmm.
much that they don't know the didactics, the reason behind it. The reason behind it, the numbers, how it's quantified and so forth, that's straightforward.
Yeah.
Um, but what I've learned is that people need to understand the value of that number in relation to their experience.
Yeah.
And so, because in the past, before, I was so gung-ho about it, and I was just giving them
Yeah.
the measurements and all of that and talk about it. They understood really the reason, because again, it's straightforward. But then their capacity to stick with it
Right.
was short-lived.
Yeah.
And so I was wondering, what is going on? It makes sense in my head. I love the thing. What is
Yeah.
going on? What do we do? And then I realized, I think it might be an over, they're jumping too far out.
Yeah.
And so I kind of watered it down a little bit. And so right now, for me, at least with the population that I serve, um, I'm finding more success introducing it midway or even latter
Love that.
for maintenance, because
Yeah.
now they feel their bodies so much more. We're using something objective to prove to them that what they're feeling is what they're feeling.
I love that. Yes.
And, And so now they're more likely to stick to it as opposed
Yeah.
to, I'm not sure this number said high, but I really feel crappy, but I don't know.
Right.
Like it dismisses that.
So I'm curious, like I love that concept. What are you looking for, like progression in treatment to say, okay, we might be ready, that there could be follow through with this. Somebody might have a readiness now to benefit from heart rate variability, tracking biofeedback. What are you sort of looking for clinically to say, or psychoeducationally to like say, okay, I think we're ready to at least bring this topic up and see if they might be interested.
Yes, I try to get the feel for it in the beginning. I plant the seed very, very early on,
Yeah.
and because I want them to see the big picture as
Hmm.
I see it as a therapist, so that they know where I'm going, why I'm doing the things I'm doing, and I introduce that concept. I talk about it in the beginning under the idea of wearables,
Yeah.
how we're using wearables now and so forth, to know what Fitbit is, to know what Whoop is, and so
Yeah.
forth. So they have an idea of what it is. And but for the populations that I serve, I have found it more beneficial for them to not rely on the wearable to tell them what their body is feeling, but to use the wearable to validate what their body is
I
feeling,
love that.
to get them a sense of independence and self-efficacy, that they know what their body is feeling. My job then is, before they start using the wearable, to train them, to get them accustomed to it, to manipulate, to change how they're breathing and so forth. So by the time they, for example, they perform a resonance frequency assessment, they can slow down their heart rate. Sorry,
Yeah.
their breath rate. I misspoke there. They can slow down their breath rate comfortably. It's not a big jump.
Right.
Um, and they, because they've been practicing for 3 months,
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
really, really skilled. Because the thing of this is what I recognize as well with resonance frequency assessment, their skill can impact their performance in doing the assessment.
Yes.
And so I realized I really want them to be really skilled, or at least
Yeah.
a lot more skilled than the
Yeah.
first 3 weeks.
Yeah. And we're seeing the same thing with the Optimization V app because you people get excited about that. A lot of people might come to the app specifically to get their resonance frequency breathing rate and study practicing. Yet if you've never done paced breathing before, how long, and I think this is an open question, how long does it take to build that skill set? We kind of walk people through a 6 day, kind of process of doing it without a pacer, doing it with a pacer, taking, and I've come to suggest that, hey, if you're just starting this 6 day onboarding process, you might want to retake the assessment 6 weeks later, just check to see, now that you've built that skill for 6 weeks, has this changed your resonance frequency breathing rate? We're probably getting to their real breathing rate at that point, but without that skill building,
Mhm.
it's just hard to get real accurate data. It probably gives people a good starting point because we're still seeing a peak in their low frequency, during that unskilled practice, which is maybe a great entry point. But, hey, just find 20 minutes 6 weeks from now, retake it, and then we're probably in a much better place to
Yeah.
give it and see if it be curious about has it changed or not
Yeah,
with the individual.
I have another comment to that, and please correct me if this is wrong. I'm willing to be corrected here. I'm just making my own professional judgment and opinion on the issue. So because of the finickiness of the resonance frequency breath rate, right? And in how it's finicky in the sense that uh, someone who's skilled doing this assessment can have a different value versus someone who is not, because that will affect their performance, right? Um, and so what I have done before was I bet you at least they're comfortable, right? And
Mhm.
that comfort level. It varies because sometimes they practice, but it's poor quality.
Yeah.
So even if they practice for 2 weeks, it's still poor quality because you're not doing it right.
Right.
If that may require further coaching or training for me. But once I feel like they can, um, then I'm willing to put them there. But at the same time, sometimes I tell them, well, is there a big difference from say 5 breaths per minute to 5.5 breaths per
Yeah.
minute? Now, one is never two.
Right.
We know that. So 5 and 5.5 are two different numbers.
Yeah.
Okay. This is where the rehab part of me comes into play. Practically, if you do the math, 40% inhalation, 60% exhalation. I had a table on this on Excel, and I figured I want to see the actual values. And you're looking at all these values in seconds. They're minuscule
Yeah.
values,
Yeah.
right? Do they make a big difference? In practicality, I think that's where the skill comes in. It makes sense because if they can hit that mark, whatever the value is, or I say it's 5, if they can hit that mark often, then it makes a difference if they really are skilled and
Yeah.
breathing according to their resonance frequency. Now, if they're not, it's going to be hit and miss.
Right.
That tells me, and it's going to be hit and miss, right? And if they say, oh, they're getting hit, but does it matter much? Because the difference between 5 and 5.5 is actually very, very small.
Very small.
And so what matters most then? Again, this is where the rehab comes in, the practicality for me. I think the main point for me is that they stick to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that after they get their resonant frequency or they're practicing and all that, they still keep going.
Yeah.
That's what's going to make a big difference in the long run. Now, granted, if they are messing up, right? But they are keeping going, if I can say that. They
Yeah.
keep going with their practice. They're instead of doing a 5.5, they're doing a 6.5.
Yeah.
In the general scheme of things, if you do the math there, the difference 5.5, 6.5, yeah, there's a difference. But we're talking about optimizing. The
Yes.
people that I work with, they just want to be better. They're
Yeah.
not optimizing. So the practicality of it for me is they just want to see a noticeable difference in how their body is so that they
Absolutely.
can live through the next day or not live, an exaggeration, but they can manage their stressors and so forth, the symptoms better the next day.
Yeah.
And that's what's really going to keep them going. And
Yeah.
eventually they know them because I tell them, give it 6 months or a year, try this again because your skill has improved so that we can fine tune what the value is for you.
Yeah. And I think we've hit, the reason if somebody gave me a research grant, I could say one thing with HRV is, does resonance frequency breathing change? Because the research, and I'm really, really clear about this, says no. Like that your resonance frequency is your resonance frequency after about the age of when you stop getting taller, when you stop your growth
Yeah.
spurts, it's locked in. I don't think that's true. Like because we like working with special operators in the military, special forces. We just kept getting is I'm on my $10,000, $12,000 thought tech equipment. We're getting 3.5 breaths per minute, and I'm like, we were pushing it, moving it down to 4 breaths per minute. Are you sure? It's like, here's the data, and so we had to add that. Now, why? The experts, the Gewurzes of the world say it's body mass. Well, like my height's not I may get a little shorter as time goes by as I get older and older, but like body mass can change fairly dramatically over a 10-year period of time. So is resonance frequency really set? And I won't say this is Gewurz answering me, but the general with the experts that I can ask these questions on there, it probably does, which that doesn't really help me because I want to stick to the research, but it's like, yeah, you probably should take it maybe yearly and be curious about it is kind of where I
Mhm.
fall with that because and the skill thing that you mentioned, I think for our listeners is so key to whether you're a clinician or an individual user, this is a skill set. And I even find now with the optimal zone meter, like how I exhale. I throw some muscle contractions, like pelvic floor contractions, and in there as well. And I see my scores improve with time in
Yeah,
optimal zone because I'm building up better skills.
I am.
Now at
Yeah,
night I gotta relax a little bit and just breathe. But yeah, like
yeah.
I
I'm
can get there.
I'm so glad you mentioned that. We talk about skill. I think it's well worth to talk about what kind of skill we're talking about here,
Yeah,
right? You're doing muscle contraction. I played with it as well, and I thought, this is my jam.
yeah.
Okay. Um, you have to. Sorry, I have to pause here for a second and really think about what I'm gonna say, because I also recognize that um, what I'm doing, there's no scientific backing.
Yeah.
It's just Jared's thing. I'm not even speaking
We allow our guests to be speculation.
Okay.
Yes, we as long as we label it, we're okay doing it. So
Okay, excellent. And this is what I found more beneficial, at least for my body. And I kind of teach some of my patients this way as well. And the reason for this is because it helps them, it helps the patients I have who are too technical
hmm
be too technical.
yeah,
And they go, wait, Jared, we don't want that. And the reason why this is so when they feel like they're technical, they think technically, right? They got to know exactly how many breaths
yeah.
and so forth. They can be technical and then therefore they can feel more at ease with their body.
hmm
When they feel more comfortable that they feel like they're doing it right, then they can get a better reading.
Yeah,
As opposed to they're being technical, now they're more concerned. Their effort now increases figuring out having the self-doubt and
yeah,
having this doubt that is this even going to read it right and so forth. And it just kind of becomes a cycle
yeah.
of not knowing, and that affects their skill, that affects their performance when they're
Absolutely.
doing, say, just even the resonance frequency or even just regular practice.
Right,
So
right,
what I focus more on when I say the skill here is the sensation of how it feels to breathe.
right.
And that's what I pay attention to. Most people understand box breathing and so forth, 4-7-8, you name it, all these
Yeah.
types of breathing exercises. And almost, and maybe this is biased, of course, because of the population that I serve, but almost everybody that I've worked with who've done those exercises, they said they don't help me.
hmm
Even the big one, and then I'm going to say this out here because I don't have any platform, Matt.
Yeah.
Um, the big one, the Huberman Lab,
hmm
Stanford research, NIH granted research, physiological side, and many therapists are saying, "Oh, just do this. It's gonna help you with anxiety and so forth, reduce stress." And I thought the first thing that came to my mind was that is deep.
Yeah.
What about over breathing? And then I would have patients in in my office um, tell me, Jared, I've done this. I read this big Stanford researcher. um, Highly funded, multi-million level grant funding and so forth, and it's not helping me.
Right.
And we look at the research, they give you an idea of how it's done. If you look at his videos on YouTube, they show you, they demonstrate to you how it's done. And I tell my patients, yeah, I understand, this is research. And unfortunately, we have to understand research for what it is,
Yeah.
what research is. It's one study.
hmm
And I said, look at the population, their samples, they're college students,
Yeah.
okay? And I'm talking about people who are in their 40s who are experiencing chronic pain.
hmm
And I said, these are two different populations.
Yeah.
And I said, this is the downside for us or I don't say I'm in academia anymore. That was my trajectory sometime
hmm
before. Um, Long story short, I decided that it'll be better for myself not to go that direction. Is that diplomatic enough for you?
Yep, that's good. I understand. I still work with a lot of people in academia, so enough said. Yes.
Yes, and until I can go there according to my terms,
Yes.
and I like being in kind spaces. How about that? I like being
Yes.
in kind spaces. So because it helps my nervous system, not just psychologically. But anyway, I I said that the research, the population, it's just one research. Your body is different, number
Hmm.
one. Okay. And so the way you experience your body when you practice that breathing exercise is going to be different from all these college students who don't have, say, gout issues,
Right.
right? Who probably bike to school,
Yeah.
who, yes, granted, they're stressed and so forth, I understand, but who also tend to have high heart rate variability to begin with.
Yeah.
So we cannot really compare that. And
Right.
so even this breathing exercise, there's a research on it. Yeah, it's one we have to replicate it,
Yeah.
replicate in different populations. And for me, I take it with a grain of, I know, tinier than sand.
Yeah.
We have to recognize it. And it's the downside of the internet is, when you have this researcher, highly published already, telling everybody this is the way to go, you have a flock of people just go in that direction because, oh, maybe this works. And then for me, I see them in my office, or some, the clinical population, I see in my office. Um, they're saying, oh, it doesn't work. And then this is the downside for many academics. They don't they talk about the limitations of the study, right? Which is good,
Hmm.
but that's not how the layman
Yeah.
population understand the limitations of the study. I think it's important to know, to tell people, frankly, what it is not, as
Right.
opposed to what it is. So we
Yeah.
know a bit more. Don't just say of the limitations, because I know, sorry, going to research here, but that's been always my issue when it comes to research. I really break it down and analyze it, because unless it's palatable and understandable by the people that I serve,
Yeah.
it just goes down into, as we know, this black hole of who knows whose meta-analysis is going to retrieve this information,
Yeah.
if at all. Um, but yeah, and then the gatekeeping aspect of this, the research. Now people are gonna say, Jarhed, you're baloney. There's publishers, there's copyright. I
Yeah.
understand. I understand. My standpoint there is, if I'm paying tax monies for this, then I should have this information. This should be public. So anyway, going into derail here, that kind of tells people where I stand here, when it comes to the research. Because you mentioned research here, I
Yeah.
I like, with heart rate variability, the research there. I'm going to circle back here. Is is a lot, right? Is
Mhm.
substantial.
Yeah.
It gives us a really good understanding now of how the body operates,
Yeah.
clinical settings, and so forth. We have this published book. Well, I feel bad because I forgot what the name of it is, but anyway, I bought it. I bought one, the most recent edition, and then the next year they came up with the most recent edition is bigger. And I go, darn it, I spent a lot of money on the other one.
Yeah,
Getting this
I know
graded
the
one
book you're
here.
talking about. Yeah, it's not a cheap publication.
Yeah, compilation. There's a lot of value in that.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I mean, talk about RCTs compiled.
Hmm. Yes.
And so for one topic, for different populations, and what I like is that it's frank. It tells you where the knowledge is not.
Yeah.
So you know not to think through, not overthink it,
Yeah.
right? So for me, clinically, oh my goodness, I can't talk about a lot about that. I mean, just the way it's presented to, my technical mind is going bullet points, and
Yes.
I thought whoever designed this, the topics in there, thank you. I
Yes.
can
It
get to
is.
what I need quickly.
It is a spectacular reference, if not a cover to cover
Yeah,
engage. It's deep, but boy, when you have a question about does this work for this, I mean, to get that honest, here's where we're at, here's the questions left over.
yeah,
It's a resource that's, just a spectacular
Yeah.
for folks like you and myself who don't want to step outside the research except to ask those questions. And as you working clinically with folks, knowing the individual, you got to put all the research in within the lens of what's the condition, what do you know about their health, wellness, and what are they going to do? Because you mentioned something kind of offhandedly that I think is the maybe the most important thing is, are they going to practice? Are they going to do this? Because we could spend $1,000 getting your perfect resonance frequency breathing rate. If you're not going to ever use it, you just wasted a lot of money,
Yeah.
to get that rate. So it's that how do you help someone find a motivation for adherence to a treatment that we've got research to say, hey, it's going to help this condition. How do we help to promote the adherence to that? Because if there's no adherence,
It doesn't mean much. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah. Yeah. If you have this idea that has a lot of value, but if people don't use it, then it doesn't help.
yeah,
I go back to interoception,
yeah,
feeling the person's body, helping them to feel their own body. Because now and then this is part of my treatment as well. I tell them that um, they're the captain of their own ship,
I love that.
right? But for people who experience chronic illness, they don't want to be the captain of that ship. They want to
Mm,
be a captain of another ship,
yeah,
but not this ship that they have.
yeah,
And so how the goal then for me is to figure out how to circumvent that, and then to still place them at the helm of their own ship, to change how they feel
mm,
about their own ship. Once they understand a bit more, anything else, like for example, with wearables, objective measures, and so forth, become or make more sense.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm not introducing anything foreign now. Again, like I said earlier, it validates their experience. But I go back to that to answer your question for treatment adherence. It's the art of therapy, I would say, in
yeah.
combination of just feeling your own body. When you feel that you're actually making a difference in your body, and then you see a validated measure of that, it reinforces what you already know.
I love
And
that.
therefore, you are more likely to stick to it because I've seen it the other way around.
Yes. Yeah,
When
that,
I've
that was kind of
seen,
my question because interoception is maybe the most popular topic of the 200 episodes that we're approaching here. And it's fascinating. But what you said just like kind of blew my mind a little bit about, I think we assume you're, but this is my mistake. So I won't say we, I'll say Matt.
okay,
Like, okay, how do I get in touch with how my body's feeling, but I spend a lot of time thinking on how do I get this ship in the best shape possible to meet the demands of my life and where I want to live the next 50 years of my life. How do I do that? So I, I'm okay with the ship. It could be a little different, but the ship that I'm piloting is I'm pretty happy with it. That idea that I wish I had a different ship and getting in touch with that the a ship that I don't like, that's frustrating to me, that causes me pain. How do you go, because we haven't really touched on that, how do you go about even starting to address, let me get you connected to something that you are struggling to, I don't know if even accept is the right word. How do you go about doing that for somebody who wishes they just had a different body?
yeah, it starts. This is like I said, the art of therapy now.
Yeah,
Um, and this is where rehab comes into play full force.
yeah,
Most clinicians, sorry, most people, the patients that I treat, they're in rehabilitation programs, PTOT speech, you name it.
yeah.
But their perspective on treatment is the medical model in which
Mm,
I know what I can do to teach you to get better.
Yeah.
And this is my prescription. It's not a drug, okay? This is how you do it. I am the keeper of the knowledge,
Yeah.
and this is what you need to do. That right away differentiates power dynamics
Yeah.
because now I am a recipient of a knowledge I don't have.
Mm. Yeah.
And this knowledge is what I need. So I rely on my provider, this therapist, this provider to tell me this knowledge. That's not how I approach it.
Yeah.
I do my best to dismantle the power dynamic
Hmm.
using specific words, of course, but also I genuinely care about the people I work with.
Sure. Yeah.
I
Which
just
always help, which always helps because if your provider doesn't, you feel that in a very
yeah,
visceral way.
you
Yes.
do. You feel like they're just weaving from one patient to another. Now that my patients don't know though that I'm moving from one patient to another
Right. Right.
because they know my schedule and they tell them, I'm so sorry, I get a little bit over late there. And I said, no, Jarhed, it's okay. We understand. We understand. We have a hard time booking my calendar and all that. They know that it's full.
Yeah.
Um, and so they understand. Sometimes I tell them, yeah, sorry, you're my 1 out of 9 today, or my
Yeah.
1 out of 8 today. And I tell them at the very end, you're my 7 out of 8. I have one more after you. And you're talking about hour-long sessions.
Yeah.
So our 55-minute long sessions are in there. So anyway,
That's
um,
by the way, having done therapy, that is a full day if you're doing
yeah,
9.
yeah, psychotherapy too.
Wow.
So it's yeah.
I
It's not
might
for the
have some
faint of heart.
feedback and suggestions for you after we
Yeah.
record here, because wow.
Yeah, I would say it's not really for the. I'm training someone because I need help too. I need another
Yeah.
person to do what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I joked around and I said something along the lines of so I think you need more stamina.
Yeah.
We were on
Wow.
hour four, and yeah, because it's intense.
Oh
What
yeah.
we're doing, what we're doing is practice.
Yeah.
It's intentional practice. But look, to answer your question, because there's one more point I wanted to mention too. So I
Great.
do my best to bring the power dynamic down to at least, or at the very least, get rid of it really, so that
Mhm.
they feel that they know that they're cared for and they feel it.
Yeah.
It's one thing to just feel it, but it's another thing to know that they know.
Right.
Um, and I do the practice with them, okay? And I speak to them in terms of the idea that they will understand their
Mhm.
body more, as opposed to tell them tell them what to know. In a way, I think another way to say this is a long time ago, when I was teaching for my program, I had to teach master level students and undergrads. Before I really started teaching, I came across this concept, a statement years ago, and it said, it's one thing to teach a lesson in class, it's another thing to teach the students,
Mm.
or to teach a student.
Yeah.
And that stood out to me. So I applied that principle when I was teaching, made teaching a lot more fun when I knew that I was teaching the students as opposed to just teaching a lesson.
I love
And
that.
I take that experience with my patients in my sessions. I am teaching the patient. I'm not teaching psychoeducation on nervous system. I am teaching them how this knowledge applies to them, and I show it to them. I quite literally show it to them through examples and experiences so that they know for themselves and they feel that for themselves on top of, the power dynamic and all that. So, but those are the two main ones that make this more, I'd say, rehab based, because
Yeah.
now I am catering to what the person needs as
Absolutely.
opposed to just having a checklist of things that I need to give the person to know,
Oh, I
give the
love that.
person to know or to have.
I love that. Well, I know we're hitting about the hour point, but I got to ask you a question, and then hopefully we can continue this conversation. Have you back?
Okay.
Where do you think when you look at your work and as technology improves and wearables are getting more and more prevalent, where do you see this idea as somebody who's integrated autonomic health into your work with resonance frequency breathing, HRV? Where do you see us going? Where do you think 5, 10 years from now? We were just joking around about AI before we hit record on this.
Yeah.
Where do you think we'll be as technology is hitting I think really exciting, a little scary too. But we're just entering, I think, another whole stage of technological development. Just when autonomic health is kind of getting into the mainstream,
Yeah.
more and
That's a
more each day.
yeah, that's a really good question. I thought about that as well before, and this is what I hope that we go into. I like the wearables
Hmm.
because it makes sense, instantaneous. I need data. I need something tangible to tell me what's going on inside me. Makes sense. But I don't need it to tell me exactly what it thinks is going on inside me.
Yeah.
Because then psychologically, it's going to impact me
Hmm.
and affect the way I interpret that, which will then impact my physiology.
Yeah.
And so I think that's where we have to be very careful when it comes to stress. Like, for example, oh, this wearable saying, oh, I'm stressed. What does it mean? I'm even more stressed. Like, I'm thinking I'm stressed,
Yeah. And that
right?
could be good stress too. Like it
It could be good
doesn't
stress.
distinguish between eustress and distress. And
Exactly. Yeah, I think it's best to just say there is a heightened what sympathetic arousal, whatever. Be a bit
Mhm.
more um precise, I guess, in here so that it's not misunderstood.
Yeah.
And then it's going back to research, right? That I was mentioning earlier. It's one thing to say what your research is and what's it about so people understand you. It's another thing to say what it is about so that you're not misunderstood.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think we need
I
to do the
love that.
same thing here so that it's not, as we get to really understand it, especially with AI, the
Mhm.
prompt messaging, the feedback, also to maybe potentially don't give us the problem. And this is what I don't like about some of these wearables. They tell you what the problem is. They tell you, oh, this
Yeah.
is going on, like the stress and so forth. But I want them to give me an idea of what I can do to fix it.
Yeah.
Don't just tell me a problem and tell me, okay, this is a problem. I
Yeah.
go, yeah, I know, but what do I do? And I feel even more stressed thinking about what to do with the problem. But
Yes.
I'd like to be able to have options on what I can do, maybe based on the context that I'm in, or maybe not. You
Right.
know, the AI may not be able to pick that information up. But again, it points me into more problem solving now. Given this data, now I'm going to think about it. It gives me the space to figure out what is best for me, as opposed to it dictating what I should be doing. It
I
opens
love
up
that.
more exploration with my body, with my experience physiologically, psychologically, and psychophysiologically, the dynamic between the two, so that I
Yeah.
can really be in control of what's going on. But that's
It's
where
like
I,
we need to create an interoception app. The thing that came to mind is the mood ring back in the day. I may be younger than I am, but like we had this great biofeedback device called a mood ring that changed colors.
yeah,
I don't know if I don't think it was ever scientifically validated, but it's like in some ways we were onto something like that no, HRV metric is going to tell you what your mood is, nor probably should it, but like that introspection part is, I think, so key to bringing the subjective and the objective
hmm
together in an actionable, meaningful way, and then, as
yeah,
you mentioned too, is hey, I'm in the middle of a meeting. I can't go for a walk outside right now. Like, so then it's the context around that, as well, which I think when we try to simplify this into a readiness score, for example, it makes it a little difficult because, we're getting, however you're going to figure a readiness score, it's one part of the overall equation. And this is where I think like working with individuals like you can be so powerful for people because I can reflect, I can strategize, I can plan around some of this stuff with somebody who knows me in the way that your clients, which I just think puts all this data into a very usable context that I think a lot of individuals, some individuals really struggle with just getting a number
Mhm.
with things. So
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned the verbal. I know we're out of time, but I'm wondering if I have a question for you
yes,
after
please
the
do.
recording. Yeah, I think there's a lot more to talk about when it comes to the wearables and what they can do for
Mhm.
us. Um, and I think there's a lot, even with AI, to give us some backing, some assistance in there of what could be happening. Um, and the human experience in there, I think it should be at the forefront, just my own perspective,
Yes.
the human experience. And we have the AI to validate and help us understand our own bodies just a little bit more,
Yeah.
that's grounded in science and scientific principles and physiological principles, because most people don't know that.
Right. Exactly.
I mentioned earlier, some people that I've worked with, they don't want to feel their ship, so to speak, right?
Yes.
But how do you navigate that? If you're just telling that person wearing this wearable, well, you're stressed. Oh, they already know.
Right. Yeah.
You tell me that I'm stressed, or you tell me that this is happening. I already know. I don't want to be in this body, actually.
Yeah. Well, and especially with something like chronic pain, like it's it's your it's always a part of that experience of being in your ship that
Hmm.
it's painful. So, you know, yeah, and as you mentioned, how do we take all that into account to
Yeah.
offer, you know, very meaningful strategies, to individuals, support to individuals with
Hmm.
that is I really think they like it, I agree with you that that's 5 to 10 years from now. Can we get to that point as our technology is, I think, opening doors that 5 years ago we didn't think would ever, I didn't imagine, my frustrations with ChatGPT 5, like,
Yeah.
wow, I didn't even think I could have those frustrations a couple years ago. Like the
Yeah.
fact that it just won't get this whole thing I'm asking it to do quite perfect. It did do 90% of something that I would have had to done all by myself. So, can we use this technology to really help people and supplement the work that you're doing? Because I think, well, I know the human connection is such a part of this healing experience that I've not seen something I'm interacting through a screen
Hmm.
quite replicate in any kind of close way as that therapeutic relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm probably one of very few. No, one of very few. Sorry, I'm an outlier here, but I see AI in therapy,
Yeah.
not in the same way that other people might think, but it's very collaborative.
Yes.
I also anticipated improving my own practice
Yep.
because I look at my sessions and I already can notice several ways to improve it,
Yeah.
which is the time I do not have.
Right. Exactly.
Here
Exactly.
again, you're talking about 7 sessions, and then you repeat that for 5 days.
Yeah.
And you're talking about 12-hour days. And then a counselor is not paid that high.
Nope.
Insurance.
It's not a field to get really wealthy in. That's I found that out very early on in my career. And you went and got a PhD too, so I kind of looked at that path. And I'm like, with my master's, I was like, I thought I was going to go on. I'm like, how many more years of school do I have, and what's the
Yeah,
starting salary? Like, I'm like, I'm doing what I like to do with this degree, so I do have
yeah.
a lot of respect for the doctor in your title. So
Oh, no, thank you. I mean, that just it for me it taught me how to think. That's what I
yeah,
like. That's my main takeaway from getting my PhD. It taught me how to think. I mean, I was thinking already before. I was already, I like
yeah,
technical writing. I enjoy technical writing. I
yes,
am not a creative writer. But it really taught me how to think. And that's just really what I take away from it, and I apply it as regularly as I can.
Awesome. Well, I can imagine that folks listening to this will want to reach out to you as well. So we'll put your contact information. You have a great website, by the way.
Well,
You
thank you.
mentioned the address so I don't screw it up. Is it recoveryandbalance.com?
Yes, that's right.
Yes. So great website. I highly encourage you have some really great resources in there that folks can download that I was geeking out about before we jumped on. So we'll put the links in there so
Okay.
people can reach out to you. But hey, like I said, through my HRV journey, I met some really amazing people, and you're definitely one of those
Oh,
that
thank you.
like I can't listen to you talk enough. This 60 minutes just like totally flew by. So
Yeah.
I hope before too many months slip away, we can re-engage in this conversation and go down some more rabbit holes, my friend. So thank you so much for joining us.
That sounds great. Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it so much.
Awesome. As always, you can find show notes, get all those good information and links for Dr. Peña's website, and you can learn more about his work at optimalhrv.com. And as always, we'll see you next week.